Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the show where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwa Kamimo. There's plenty to reflect on today. The country marks the second year of devolution, with security and financing still very much in focus. The Senate and the National Assembly are pushing and pulling over the allocation for counties in the next budget. The National Assembly, meanwhile, has voted to send home the head of the anti-corruption body. Well, today's guest, Senate Devolution Committee Chair Kipchumba Murkomen. He's a senator for Elgeyo Marakwet. And from the National Budget Committee, Dennis Oweru, the Member of Parliament for Dagoretti South here in Nairobi County. Motegi Njau is also in the studio with me, while David Makali is still away on leave. Good morning and welcome to the show. We'll come to corruption, which is really the hot subject at the moment. But there's this contention over county allocations. And so, Mr. Oweru, I'll start with you because you proposed a figure and sent it to the... What is the problem from your perspective?
Thank you very much. And I would like to start by saying that in the new constitution dispensation, Parliament, and in this case, the National Assembly and the Senate is a budget-making institution. And so when we get the estimate, and it has different timelines, we normally get the BPS, where we get the
budget.
BPS is a budget policy, where we get a focus, an envelope outlining or focusing on the programs and the estimates going forward for the year. And so at this level, we have gone through the BPS, and now after the BPS, which informs now the vertical application of the resources. And now we get the county, division of revenue bill. And so having passed the BPS, both without any resistance in both houses, where there was concurrence on the BPS, we as the National Assembly, we do not understand where the issues came in now again, where we have to alter. We had initially passed in the BPS.
What did you pass?
We had passed how much to the county government. We had applied the national funds for the national government and the funds that we were to devolve to the counties.
What was the figure?
The figure was 283 billion shillings.
And the problem now is?
The problem is the Senate, with my brother here,
the Senate increased
by 7.7 billion shillings. Yes. One of the items that they have provided for, we have an issue with, and it's good that I come from the budget committee, is the county disaster county emergency fund, which is, according to the law, it's supposed to be only 2% of the budget in the county government. So already that amount has been provided for in respective county government bills in the county level. And so we feel it's a duplication, where now they are saying we allocate another 4 billion shillings for the same purpose. And so we feel that is not fair. Number two, we know that there is need to have money devolved to the county government. We have no problem with that. But what we are saying is, we know even the national government, the money that we give to the national government eventually is used and applied and devolved to the lowest level possible. And so it's not an issue of denying John and Paul. It's an issue of complementary roles of the two levels of government. And so what we are saying is we should not starve the national government of resources, because they are serving the same counties, they are serving the same people, and so we should be having to compromise going forward. And finally, the 283 amount was agreed upon by Intergovernmental Budget and Finance Committee. And so we feel like we should not be going back when we have already allocated and agreed on some positions.
What's your perspective?
Thank you very much. I first of all like to tell the public that it was expected under the law that the members, National Assembly has a greater representation of the national government, the counties. That's why in Article 96 says to Senate to protect the counties. So our responsibility in terms of Division of Revenue Bill, which actually it must come clear to the public that we were sidestepped in the first instance. So this is a process that only for the second time the Senate is involved, and our involvement is not to rubber stamp. It's for us to perform our responsibilities as an institution that is actually protecting the counties. My brothers talked about IBEC, which is chaired by the Deputy President, had agreed on a particular figure, but it was not envisaged in law that any other entity would dictate Parliament when it comes to the responsibility as said in budgeting or in division of revenue. We were not supposed to operate like conveyor belts. We have to apply our brains, have our own thoughts, input them in the law. And doing that does not necessarily mean it's a conflict with National Assembly. It is just that the reason why Senate votes equally and that it votes based on delegation, that is because every county is considered. To the institution of Senate is an institution that equalizes or ensures that there is equity in the country.
Okay, so let's get to the point.
That background is very important.
Right.
In now applying to the argument that from our perspective, we thought, rightly so, that one, the question of health to appreciate National Assembly is very important. That's why conditional grants for the machines that some governors said they will not sign. Now, after this law passes, compulsorily, they will have to get those machines based on provision of law as a conditional grant.
I'm getting confused. Just a minute. I want to clarify that. Are you talking about the equipment that the national government bought, which county governments were rejecting?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's part of the budget. Conditional grant to the counties. What counties are getting is that 256 billion will be equitable. It will be using the formula. And then you will have another amount which comes to almost 30 billion as proposed by National Assembly at that point to 283, which we added now on top of it, which has the conditional grant for the equipment. And now we added, they had put some amount for. It's not true that, that argument by National Assembly that emergency is 2% of national budget. Or county budget. Actually, they are contradicting themselves, because in their proposal they put emergency fund 1 billion. We added 3 billion to 4.4 billion. We also added amount to.
Let's stop there, because you're talking quite a bit, so that we, clarify things. I think the MP, Waweru, said that county budgets, in terms of their formula or breakdown, already has some sort of breakdown for emergency costs, which works out at about 2%. Yeah. And so their understanding is that in addition to that, you're also creating an emergency fund.
Absolutely.
Which they find is a duplication.
Yeah, if you read BFM law, the emergency...
What does BFM stand for?
Public Finance Management Act. If you look at the law, the 2% which is being proposed there is for... being able to fund the budget of the county across. But the emergency we are talking about in the allocation is disaster. In fact, we should have called Disaster Management Fund, because that is what is actually envisaged. The genesis of the problems we are having now with public finance management process, the division of revenue, is in our absence as Parliament to do something called Houses of Parliament, to do laws that will unbundle the functions. And when I say unbundle functions, if you look at Schedule 4 of the Constitution, it says Part 1 says that you have disaster management managed by national government. Part 2, which is functions of county, disaster management by county government. So we think that the area of disaster management is needed a particular amount of money to cover certain disasters that can be handled within the county. That's why that funding is put in place. But if we became prudent as Parliament, work together, put in place laws that will clearly define what is county disaster, clearly define county roads, clearly define the issues of county referrals and so forth, then we will be in future more clearer on what we are going to do with certain funding. Because if you see the debate now, in the absence of clear legislation, you will continue seeing overlap in the areas of agriculture, areas of water, areas of irrigation, areas of disaster management. And as Parliament, that is where we have a problem in contributing to this debate of division of revenue. So we added that money in the wisdom that counties needed. But, you know, it's a parliamentary process. If National Assembly do not agree with us, we'll have something called a mediation committee. That is how Parliament can be able to agree, bring them on. The thing
Have we gone to mediation yet?
Not yet. It's up to when Parliament makes now final decision, a National Assembly, then we'll have to go for mediation. They also have the power to, by 2/3, veto the whole decision. And if they so wish and they think that counties don't need that money, they can use that later. But I don't think they will achieve that. What we can easily achieve is to have a mediation process that we can agree on, maybe adding more or reducing a little bit so that we have a balance.
I've heard some argument from Parliament, from the National Assembly, that you allocated that 7.7 billion without saying the source. Money coming from.
Even the other one, we never say. Even the other one, we never say the source.
But that doesn't make it right.
And even before he answers that question, and you know, it's a process. Even budget making, it's a process, and a long one. And there are very many considerations to be put into focus. One, you need to be able to know where you get the money from. When you're funding, when you're allocating resources, it's not just an issue of application of resources. You need to tell us, where do we get these resources from? And that is what Mutegi is trying to say. Number two, you know, there are other considerations like the macro stability. Of course, we don't want to go and start creating deficit in our budget. We don't want to go to the domestic market and start borrowing unnecessarily. That you destabilize a lot of macroeconomic indicators. And so my thinking is, as much as we want to, and we appreciate that in this new constitution, budget, Parliament is a budget-making process, but I don't think we should be overstepping on the executive rules, because it's quite engaging, and I welcome even what the executive is doing, so that even when, as a budget committee, and I want to invite budget committee in Senate to start getting engagement, to know and to understand where the executive is coming from when they are coming with some of these recommendations. And so we need to have a lot of much more engagement. And I want to make a recommendation that even in such important and critical issues, small comment, I think it's high time we start having joint parliamentary committees when we are engaging the executive. And I think that you try and remove most of these issues. And we have a precedent in this when we had committee on critical issues in National Assembly. Like the other day, we were vetting, and I saw the Security Committee in both chambers of House had a joint sitting sessions, and so that really...
That's certainly something that we can take forward, but please answer the question about where the resources are coming from. I
mean, honestly, that is not even an argument we should be having here. Where the resource come from is the projected revenue for that financial year. And it's based, the division of revenue law says it's based on the last audited accounts. No, whether national or county government cannot define now where those resources come from. It's coming from the taxes of Kenyans. It is not true, as my brother is saying, to say that when you're doing division of revenue bill, you must indicate exactly that you are going to remove from national government this much. That's not what is anticipated. What happens in division of revenue, you have a division of the cake. You have one cake, you slice a particular size to the county, which is not less than 15%, based on last audited accounts. You give it to every county now to go and divide in their own budget, and national government remains also to do their budget. National government should not be budgeting for any function before we divide the revenue. The only indicators that 203 of the Act, 202, 203 of the the Constitution says is that when you are doing this division of revenue, you have a wholesale appreciation of national interest, payment of loans and so forth. But the detailed budgeting by any level of government will have to wait until you have your cake. Then from that cake, now you sit down to do the budget. That's why after this division of revenue, the Parliament now sit to complete the budget process and work out exactly what Minister of National Government is going to get. And counties also need the division of revenue and the allocation of revenue bill so that they can do the county budget. That's why the county budgets have been delaying. So details of what a county has to put on what will wait first until you have an allocation, and even national government have to wait to get their own allocation from the division of revenue bill. So second is I agree with my colleague here that and this is something that has not gone out, so we haven't defined. I've even seen in the conference in Kisumu that there is confusion between counties and devolution. Yeah, that both levels of government under Article 6 of the Constitution are required to devolve. If you read Article 6.3, government is supposed to devolve its functions to the local level. If you read Article 174 of the Constitution, devolution is meant for national government to take its services to the lowest level. So it's not true that a function is more devolved if it's founded by, if it is delivered by county government. It's also not true that devolution is county governments. So devolution is bigger than the two levels of government. It's a concept that requires both levels of government to take services close to the people by decentralization. That is a topic we are going to discuss tomorrow in Kisumu, but it's important that there is no misconception by county governments.
Where is this misconception coming from?
The misconception is coming from the assumption. If you see some governors, they will even tell you that if security is transferred, the argument they are making is that transfer security to county government, but they use a fraud statement that devolves security to county government. That's not the same. Devolution of security at the moment, security is the most devolved function of national government at the moment, because it is functioning up to locational level, even up to sublocational level. They have entities up to sublocation level. So actually properly taken to the lowest level. Devolved. But if you look at the argument the counties are saying is that transfer to the county government. Transferring is a different function, is a different argument than just making a blanket accusation that you have to transfer function to counties to be more devolved.
Utegi, were you satisfied by that in terms of, because your question was where the resources are coming from?
Even him is not satisfied. I don't know. The question is, if the money has not been allocated by the people who allocate, and then Senate goes and put another 7.7, he's not saying where to come from.
let me first say this. I wanted to say something about 7.7.
Yes.
Why do you ask where 7.7 is coming from when you've not even asked where 283 comes from? The 283 in the first instance, where do they come from? It's where the 7.7 coming from. So, and I just want to make it even more clearer to say that 7.7 is a drop compared to the main argument. In terms of
it's additional.
What is projected to be the revenue we're raising this year is 1.2 trillion. Yeah. If you look at the last audited accounts, you have about 1 trillion. If they complete last year's expenditure was over. Now, if you talk about we are projected to be raising 1.2 trillion of the resources, and you've put only 2.8 something to the county governments, it doesn't mean that that's a lot of amount of money. But as I said, if there is a credible argument that 7.7 alters completely national interest under the constitutional requirements that you must finance national, if it can be demonstrated.
That is what they're arguing. They're arguing that if the money is extra,
they must convince Senate. It's not just an argument for the sake of it.
The argument is this. Since the money is not there, it is over and above.
Over and above what?
Therefore,
over and above
the government will have
283. It's above 283.
Because the national cake has been given to the national government, and the counties have got theirs. So the money is over.
It is not yet given. It is the process of giving. Is this what we are debating here? That is the process of giving.
These arguments, we should have had it before. we should have had it at this level of BPS. And I don't understand why they are coming back again after two months or so to come and say, now look, we need to change this. Otherwise, they should have engaged us at that level. And I want also to ask, Mulkomen, and I have a lot of respect for him. We know and we understand, and he comes from Jubilee. There is a manifesto.
You're in the same coalition.
There is a manifesto with two gentlemen, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President. And they promised Kenyans, this is what we are going to deliver to Kenyans. At the same time, we cannot now go back and start implementing another agenda of Akina Mulkomen and the Senate, because then they didn't promise Kenyans.
Let's go
any deliverables.
Right. Let's go step by step. Kipchumba has made a point about why they need the additional 7.7 billion. Sitting as you do in the budget committee, does that make sense to you? Is it reasonable? Is it plausible?
I think it's an issue of we passed BPS with them.
No, I understand,
together.
and I'm coming to that. In a minute. But does the justification for the additional amount seem plausible to you?
Absolutely not.
No,
absolutely
why not?
Because one, we had you see this disaster or emergency budget. It's already provided for. Under every county, they're supposed to provide the 2%.
But he's just given you the reasoning.
Why we are coming back again and trying to put another provision of 4 billion shillings, that is clear.
So you don't buy the distinction. You don't buy the distinction then that it's a disaster emergency fund.
It should not be provided at this level. It should be provided at the county level.
Can I make very important distinctions? One, the money we provided is a grant. When it's a grant, it's going to be managed by counties, but with conditions from the parliament. So they can't spend that money on something else. There's a desire to ensure that matters of disasters are capped. There is a more fundamental desire to ensure that what we promised in the Jubilee coalition in terms of health is achieved. If you see now Nyeri this provincial hospital is going to bring down the Nyeri county, because the expenditure for Nyeri provincial hospital alone to serve about 6 or 7 counties is very high. And if we are not going to cushion, if you look at the previous provincial general hospital, you saw Mombasa. The reason why there's too many strikes in Mombasa is because the county government is unable to put to shades 4 billion, which is very little if you think about a county with 1 million people, to be able to budget. And you remember in Mombasa, the Coast General Hospital is serving about 6 counties. So the reason why we are adding more money to those hospitals is actually for the reason that we have a responsibility at national and county level to ensure that health is well managed. Otherwise, the Nakuru, Kisumu, those provincial hospitals will be in problem, and they have already caused problems to those particular counties. I also want to add that what we are doing in Senate is not outside the budget policy statement. And let me say, budget policy statement is a broad statement. It's a statement, just to say. But now in the division of revenue we are doing law, and law prescribes for the details of how to implement the budget policy statement. So we haven't run away from the budget policy statement. As I said, it's a conversation. The division, what Muteki was talking about is where does the money come from? We have not divided the money yet. Division of revenue becomes division of revenue when it becomes law. And the process of making that law as just first step has been completed. It's going to National Assembly, it's come to Senate, it's now going to National Assembly for concurrence. They may not concur, we'll go for mediation. Once it becomes law, that is when you can say the money has been provided,
so
and there's no extra money.
Why is that argument that the money is not there, though the government may have to borrow from local?
No, the point is that...
why is that argument?
No, let me just say this. By the way, we are only dividing taxes. All the loans, government is still borrowing. County government is still allowed by law to borrow.
But
county government are still allowed to collect the extra taxes at their own
sorry, help us understand, because Kipchumba is responding to your question by saying the money will be raised from taxes. But you don't buy that. Why not?
No. Because we already have an estimate of how much we are going to collect tax. Yeah. In fact, we have a ceiling. And we have... There are many ratios that we are looking at. and maybe we don't want to go above 15% of the budget. We don't say we are talking about we don't want to, for example, we don't want to borrow more than 100 billion shillings. We don't want to create a deficit above a certain level. And so there are rules when it comes to budget making process. And so it should not be treated as just a very simplistic entry of saying let's give 7 billion shillings to a certain level of government. And so that is why I'm saying even the Senate needs to have an engagement with the executive. And in this case I'm talking about the finance minister, so that they can understand where these figures have come from. Because and I agree with his argument about the level 5 hospitals, because if you look at Nyeri Hospital, is serving Kirinyaga, is serving Laikipia, is serving Nyeri itself, and part of Muranga, and Embu. But this is not the solution to what we are discussing here, Mulcomen, is extra resources that you have allocated to the county, not the principle that we should fund the level 4,
That's the question there.
And what we are saying is, in fact, I'm very supportive of this medical equipment leasing proposal, and I'm looking forward to the government to roll out the leasing of equipment and other services to other government levels. But my issue is on how do we just, and I don't think 7 billion shillings is petty cash. It's a lot of money. And so when we are talking about 7 billion shillings, I think it's something that we need to be careful about. Because if you're talking about 500 million, then it's understandable. But when you alter a whole budget of a whole ministry and say this amount should be allocated more to the governors, counties, I think that is wrong.
Can I say this? Extra only will occur once the initial has been determined. The initial has not been. The initial amount that is supposed to be divided between the counties is determined using division of revenue law, which we have not done yet. So extra will be debated once we have the law. You see, extra to what? Extra to the proposals of the executive?
It sounds
No, I'm just asking.
It sounds as if you're coming from very different perspectives.
Not at all.
You're coming from the law and thinking almost, it seems, if you're coming from a financial background, that the money will just happen. Whereas they're thinking, are we raising taxes? Are we increasing the tax burden? What are we doing in order to bring about this 7.7? Almost 8 billion.
Do we know the amount of money we raise as tax?
Absolutely.
We know.
Absolutely. We are estimating.
Is that 7.7 inside there?
Yes.
No, it's not. It's not. No, currently it's not.
Can I be so basic? Let me try to be basic, because the word extra is completely misleading.
Right.
We have a cake called 1.2 trillion. Division of revenue law is dividing that cake. The National Assembly is proposing that let the cake be divided by giving counties 283, and we give national government 970 something, 970 billion. The Senate is saying no, let's not divide that way. Let's divide it by giving counties 291 and giving yes, the figures are clear. Let's give the counties 290. National government 960 something, and the counties 291.
Right.
Now we haven't completed that process for anyone to talk about extra.
But the point also,
and to divide that money, you don't tell me, my budget at the national level, the details is this way, therefore I cannot give out the money. No, it's a full cake. It's a, if you get.
But you're taking away from the national government to give to the county
No,
government.
you're not taking it from national government.
Let me give the facts. Because I have the facts.
Right.
We had proposed to the county 283.
Proposed.
283. We had proposed national government 978 billion 692. The Senate is proposing 976 to the national government, a reduction of 1.7 billion shillings from the national government to the county government. Look, they are proposing an additional 1.5, which 1.5 billion shillings plus, if you add 1.7, 1.5, 4.4 for emergency, county emergency fund, that comes plus 1.5 for level 4 additional, that comes to 7.7 billion shillings extra, to be precise.
Yes.
And so what we are asking is, how do you fund this whole? Already, remember, in our estimates, the provision for how much we can borrow in the domestic market.
Okay.
And so what we have to do is we are going to add an additional in excess of what we are already borrowing in the domestic market. And so you are going to pay more for your mortgage because the interest rates will go up. And that is what we are saying. This is not just a legal argument. This is also a monetary...
We'll take a break. Hang on. We'll take a break.
Because we don't want to mislead people.
Hang on. We'll take a break so we can digest the figures and then come back to your argument.
Okay.
All right. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. Tell us what you think. We're talking about county allocations, the budget. Our SMS number is 22422. You can also tweet us on @Cheche_TV.